The story begins with an old man facing a horrifying sight. A prophecy speaks of a weekend where a natural disaster, the devil dragon Leviathan, will destroy the entire nation, but it will ultimately be brought down by someone from another world. Meanwhile, the main character, Owari, reflects on his tragic past. At 35, he was a successful, social media-savvy professional fisherman with his own manufacturing brand. However, his success was short-lived. Trusted colleagues stole the company funds, leaving him bankrupt and drowning in debt. 20 years later, the 55-year-old single man runs a lonely tackle shop and barely makes a living working on a fishing boat. Currently bored on the water, he watches a customer reel in a plump black snapper. The customer praises his exceptional ability to help others land a catch. He humbly brushes off the compliment, claiming to be just an old man who loves fishing. The customer then brings up his past, noting that without that betrayal, he would be incredibly successful today. He jokes that while he might be bad at picking business partners, he certainly knows how to pick the best fishing spots. In reality, he hides his true feelings, desperately wishing he could turn back time and start over from scratch. Noticing his hook is getting dull, he swaps it out and slips a small spare into his pocket. As he stands up, his back aches from crouching. Suddenly, the water grows turbulent. Massive tides rock the boat violently, causing him to lose his balance and fall into the churning sea. His life jacket fails to deploy. Realizing it expired just the day before, panic sets in as he wonders if this is the end. Elsewhere in the same sea, Lorikina stands atop a wooden structure. Spotting her target in the water, she dives in. When she surfaces, a rope attached to her equipment is pulled taut. A fierce fish emerges, struggling violently against the staff it bit into. Her companions realize the creature is too strong as it tears the equipment apart and escapes. They acknowledge the difficulty of subjugating the beast and worry about an even larger threat looming in the waters. They reprimand her for being reckless, but as she emerges from the water a second time, she is not holding a fish. Instead, she drags a human to the surface. The human she pulls from the water is none other than Owari. He slowly opens his eyes to find Lorikina leaning over him, checking to see if he is okay. He quickly sits up, suddenly realizing that his body looks significantly younger and no longer appears 55 years old. She comments that it is an absolute miracle he did not end up as fish bait. Glancing at his surroundings, he remembers falling into the sea. He notices that she and her companion possess animal features, leading him to momentarily wonder if he washed up at a strange cosplay convention. However, looking up at the sky, he spots real dragons soaring above. The reality sinks in that he has been transported to another world. He explains to them that he fell into the sea while fishing and somehow ended up in this younger body. Her companion tells him he should just be glad to be alive, though he finds their casual reactions incredibly frustrating. Reaching into a large pot to serve him some liquid, she eagerly asks him to share more about fishing. Surprised by her interest, he asks why she cares. She explains that she saw it in an old picture book where adventurers catch, cook, and eat their prey, adding that she dreams of traveling just to eat lots of fish. Her companion teases her, pointing out that she only cares about the food rather than the actual sport. She defends herself, insisting she genuinely finds it interesting because the practice died out ages ago. Shocked, he asks if the culture has truly disappeared from this world. She confirms it, explaining that using nets and harpoons is simply far more efficient. He tries to explain that using a pole and line is not just about survival or eating, but rather a thrilling battle against nature. Realizing that his lifelong passion serves no practical or commercial purpose in this new world, he becomes deeply frustrated. He despairs over his lack of useful skills, shouting that he might not be able to survive in this foreign land. Unfazed by his panic, she calmly reassures him, stating that they do not yet know if his talents will be necessary. The elder beastfolk shouts in disbelief, questioning Lorikina's intentions. She confidently declares that the human might be the key to their survival on the island. Regaining his senses, Owari approaches the water, touching and sniffing it to confirm it is salt water. He feels a brief wave of relief that the sea and sandy beach look completely normal. However, his comfort vanishes when he spots a strange creature nearby that looks entirely alien to his home world, making him realize he should still be on guard. She then suggests they go fishing. He points out that while the environment is perfect, they lack the proper gear. She proudly recalls reading about a stick, a string, and a hook in her picture book, casually mentioning that the people in the stories also used magic. The mention of magic completely catches him off guard. Just then, another local approaches the elder with a long object wrapped in cloth. The elder instructs the local to hand it over to him, asking if the item looks familiar. Unwrapping the cloth, he is shocked to find his own fishing gear. The elder explains that the equipment washed ashore right after they rescued him. Feeling incredibly nostalgic, he expresses his joy at being reunited with his precious tools. Curious, she approaches and easily identifies the rod but is utterly confused by the spinning reel. Realizing she has no concept of a reel, he deduces that fishing technology in this world stopped evolving centuries ago. Eager to see his skills in action, she asks for a demonstration. He agrees to show her but explains that he still needs a sinker, bait, and most importantly, a hook. Suddenly, he remembers the small box he slipped into his pocket earlier. He pulls it out with a smile, explaining that it is a small waste container. Opening it, he is thrilled to find the spare hook he saved before falling overboard. She inspects it, doubting that something so small will actually work. He assures her that the gauge is strong enough to pull up a decent-sized catch. With the rig nearly ready, he asks her to gather some live bait, suggesting bugs or shellfish, to which she eagerly agrees. Meanwhile, Owari finishes preparing his rig, carefully tying on the spare hook he found and crafting a makeshift sinker out of a heavy stone wrapped in vines. Just as he finishes, she returns holding the strange, jelly-like creature from earlier, revealing it to be a slime. He touches it, noting its uniquely squishy texture. Realizing he cannot use it whole, he asks for a knife, which she promptly provides. Though he is entirely accustomed to handling bugs and standard bait, slicing into an unknown, otherworldly creature makes him unusually nervous. As he cuts into the jiggly slime meat, he observes that it perfectly mimics artificial bait. It acts as a flawless hybrid between a live worm and a sliced fish fillet. He worries slightly about cutting the pieces too thin and compromising their durability, but he ultimately manages to shape the perfect lure. He excitedly praises the slime, thanking her for finding such excellent bait. Thrilled to be of help, she eagerly waits for him to demonstrate his skills. Standing on the pristine shore with his rod in hand, he pauses. He reflects on the familiar, thrilling excitement bubbling in his chest, the pure anticipation right before a catch. He realizes that in his previous life, he was constantly bogged down by his failures and what others thought of him. Yet, even after dying mid-cast and waking up in an entirely unknown universe, he is right back to doing what he loves. Fully embracing his core identity as a fisherman to the very end, he confidently casts his line out into the sea. The elder and the other beastfolk watch in shock as the lure flies an incredible distance. Lorikina is amazed, noting that he does not even need to step into the dangerous sea to fish. Owari briefly wishes he could show them a modern baitcaster reel as well. Suddenly, he feels a tug on his rod. Pleased with the quick start, he notes that something is already nipping at the lure. The line jerks violently, and he begins turning the reel. Feeling a very weak pull, he assumes it is just a small fish. She playfully teases him, claiming his hook was too small. He stays optimistic, explaining that simply getting a bite is good progress, and they can always catch a bigger one next time. However, as the fish breaches the surface, it reveals itself to be absolutely massive. The onlookers are completely stunned. She praises his skills, already excited about the feast they will have. Meanwhile, he is deeply confused, wondering why such a massive fish felt so light on the reel. Rolling up his sleeves, he notices a single horn on the creature's head. He grips the horn and attempts to drag the beast ashore himself, but he fails and tumbles backward. He tearfully realizes that his body has not gained superhuman strength. Rather, his fishing gear has simply been magically enhanced. He laments that, deep down, he is still just a physically weak old man. Suddenly, the elder approaches from behind and falls to his knees. The elder deeply apologizes for directing suspicious looks at him earlier and respectfully asks for his name. He introduces himself as Machida Owari. Pleading for his help, the elder explains that the village is currently trapped on the island. The elder desperately begs him to lend them his strength and use his incredible fishing skills to catch the terrifying monster known as the Warrior Eater. The elder explains the dire situation to Owari. He reveals that on the path connecting their island to the mainland, monsters have been suddenly appearing and attacking oblivious adventurers. Many warriors have fallen victim to these creatures, earning the monsters the terrifying nickname, the Warrior Eater. Shocked by the casual mention of people dying, including an elf who was recently eaten, he realizes the people of this world have a very different, desensitized view of death. The elder desperately kneels, pleading for assistance in subjugating the threat, as it currently traps them on the island. Though secretly terrified of facing unknown man-eating fish, His burning desire to try fishing outweighs his fear. Feeling indebted to them for saving his life, he accepts the request, offering his fishing skills to help the village. Overjoyed, the elder promises their full cooperation. He then asks to be introduced to someone knowledgeable about the warrior eater. The elder points to Lurikina, explaining that she puts the most effort into hunting the beast. At first, he is impressed by her apparent bravery, but the elder quickly clarifies that she only risks her life because she wants to eat the monster, driven purely by her massive appetite. When they approach her to discuss the monster, she completely ignores them, entirely fixated on the fish he caught earlier. Embarrassed by her single-minded obsession with food, the elder sighs. Guessing that fish dishes must be incredibly rare in this world, he offers to try cooking it. Instantly, her ears twitch in excitement. Standing before the massive catch with a sharp staff, he prepares to perform a technique called naojime, or brain spiking, to keep the creature from thrashing while being filleted. He carefully aims for the intersection of the lateral line and the gill cover, then forcefully stabs the spot. Though successful, the physical effort exhausts him, making him realize he might have died if not for his rejuvenated, younger body. Watching him struggle, she casually mentions that she could have easily done it for him if he had simply taught her the method. He refuses her help with the kill, insisting that, as the one who caught the fish, he must take responsibility for ending its life. She lightly notes that fishermen have strange egos. Moving on to the bleeding process, he explains that cutting the gills and placing the catch in seawater is the easiest method. The carcass is far too heavy for him to lift, but Lurikina effortlessly drags it to the water. As the blood washes away, Owari examines the creature. Noting its small scales, tiny gill slits, and the distinct horn on its head, he realizes it is simply a massive black scraper. Deciding on a specific recipe, he asks if they happen to know what miso is. The elder is completely baffled by the word, but she eagerly mentions her love for soy sauce, leaving him relieved that familiar seasonings actually exist in this new world. He attempts to chop off the fish's head, but lacks the physical strength to cut through the bone. She eagerly steps in, effortlessly slicing off the mouth and horn. He demonstrates how easily the thick skin peels back from the cut, noting that this convenient trait makes the filefish perfect for beginners. Together, they separate the head from the body, revealing a gigantic, pristine liver inside. Taking over the delicate work, he fillets the fish into 3 pieces and carefully removes the bones and bloodline. He meticulously chops the meat, mixes it with the rich liver and miso, and sprinkles on some condiments to finish the dish. He serves the completed meal to the beast folk. The elder is stunned, explaining that fish cuisine is a luxury reserved strictly for nobles. Having never seen anything like it in her picture books, she takes a hesitant bite. Instantly, her face lights up with joy, and she declares it the delicious meal she has always longed for. Seeing her reaction makes all his effort worthwhile. He finally sits down to take a bite himself. The flavor is so unimaginably good that he jokingly wonders if he has died again and gone straight to heaven. Owari remembers the earlier conversation about elves and warriors being eaten in large numbers. Looking down at the delicious meal before him, a horrifying realization dawns on him. This fish with its impressive teeth might actually be a man-eater. He hesitates, struggling to swallow his bite. However, he quickly realizes that to survive in this harsh new world, he must discard the ethics of his past life. He forces himself to eat, tears streaming down his face as he admits the dish is incredible. Lurikina notices his tears, innocently assuming the food is just so good that it is making him cry. Changing the subject back to the warrior eater, the elder prompts her to share her knowledge of the monster. She points toward a line of wooden stakes stretching across the sea. She explains that when the tide goes out, the water drops to knee depth, creating a natural sandbar path between the island and the continent. He recognizes this geographic occurrence as a tombolo phenomenon. She then reveals a disturbing detail about the monster. Despite her race's naturally heightened sensitivity to presence, she did not sense the beast until it attacked her. It felt as if the creature burst directly out from the ground beneath the shallow water. Shocked that she was attacked so recently, he asks how she survived. Embarrassed, she shows him her leg armor, explaining that her adamantite greaves saved her life. The sturdy metal clearly bears the deep, vicious tooth marks of the warrior eater. Seeing this, he immediately asks if he can have the damaged armor. Confused, she asks what he possibly plans to do with it. Confident in his new strategy, he declares that while the true form of the monster remains a mystery, he now knows exactly how to catch it. To the elder's amazement, he announces he will use the greaves to fish the beast out. Holding the damaged greaves, Owari wonders aloud if there is anyone skilled enough to process the incredibly hard metal into a specific shape. Lorikina points him toward the elder. They return to the beastfolk village, where rumors quickly spread. The villagers gossip about the human claiming he will take care of the warrior eater, scoffing at the ridiculous idea that a mere fisherman could defeat such a monster. Meanwhile, the elder works diligently, hammering the adamantite greaves into shape. After making several adjustments under Owari's guidance to round out the edges, the elder finally finishes. He successfully transforms the armor into a massive magnum spoon fishing lure, complete with a large hook. The elder notes that the extremely hard adamantite is not suited for detailed craftsmanship, but he assures him the result is more than perfect. Thanking the elder profusely, he declares that the only thing left to do is hook the beast. The next day, a massive crowd of beastfolk gathers at the shore to watch the spectacle. She notes that everyone is holding onto a sliver of hope, though the villagers' loud murmurs reveal heavy skepticism. They loudly doubt his rod can handle the monster and call his attempt reckless, joking that they will at least build him a grave when he dies. Surprisingly, the murmurs put him at ease. Realizing that in this new world he is just a nobody, he feels entirely freed from his past failures and excited to finally enjoy fishing to his heart's content. Raising his rod, he casts the line forward with incredible force. The onlookers gasp in amazement as the heavy metal lure flies a massive distance. Staring at his spinning reel, they are completely baffled by the advanced tool. As the lure hits the water, he begins talking himself through the basic fishing actions, jerking the rod upward, winding the reel to take up the slack, and repeating the process in a classic lift and fall motion. Retrieving the lure, he is thrilled to see it fluttering and swimming through the water just like a real fish. Confused, she asks why he is not just leaving it in the water to wait for a bite. He explains that he is not using real bait, but rather a fake lure. While live bait catches fish on its own, a lure requires the fisherman's skill to make it move and trick the prey. Tossing it back into the water, he notes that with a fake lure, a fisherman will not catch a single thing if they just stand still. He explains that by using an angler's skill to breathe life into the lure, fishing feels more like an active attack rather than just a game of waiting. Lorikina realizes this makes perfect sense. Meanwhile, beneath the surface, the heavy lure sinks toward the seabed. Suddenly, a massive eye pops out of the sand, glaring at the shiny metal. The gigantic creature emerges entirely from its hiding spot and aggressively bites down on the lure. Above the water, Owari feels a massive weight on his rod. He curses slightly, noting that the pull is so incredibly heavy it feels like his hook is snagged on the ocean floor. He forces himself not to panic. Trusting his instincts, he deduces that this specific type of fish does not run away quickly. He pieces together the clues she gave him earlier. The creature can ambush prey in knee-deep water without being noticed because it is a flatfish that lies low against the sand. Furthermore, it specifically targets warriors because it reacts to the light reflecting off their armor. He realizes the non-warrior victims must have also been wearing shiny footwear, just like her adamantite greaves. Seeing the monster's shadow near the surface, he knows better than to force it using only the reel's power. He lowers his rod, steps back, and uses his body weight to manage the intense pull, recognizing this exact technique from his past life. Suddenly, the enormous fish breaches the surface. Seeing its shape, he identifies it as a monstrously huge flounder. The observing beastfolk erupt into cheers, amazed that the human actually managed to reel it in. Realizing his fishing skills perfectly translate to this new world, he feels a deep sense of fulfillment. With all his past regrets washed away, he resolves to simply enjoy his new life from scratch. His moment of triumph is cut short when she suddenly shoves him out of the way, shouting for him to look out. Before he can react, strange bubble-like blisters on the flounder's head begin to bulge and burst. With a loud explosion, the fish ruptures. To his absolute shock, a young elf girl completely covered in gross slime emerges from the blast, loudly complaining about how depressing and annoying the sticky mess is. The onlookers gasp in surprise, pointing out the girl's distinctive ears and realizing she is an elf. Lorikina is amazed, mentioning it is her first time seeing one in person. Owari suddenly remembers the elder mentioning that an elf was recently eaten by the monster. Before they can fully process the situation, the elf wobbles on her feet and collapses to the ground, muttering that she is starving. They quickly carry her to a safe spot to rest. When he checks on her, she groans that she is too exhausted to even move. Knowing she needs food immediately, he inspects his available ingredients. He finds salt, pepper, sugar, olive oil, flour, butter, and a citrus fruit. Squeezing the fruit and taking a taste, he notes its sour, mandarin orange-like flavor. He decides to use a fillet from the exploded warrior eater flounder to prepare a classic Meunier dish. He cuts the meat into appropriate sizes, seasons it with salt and pepper, and coats it in flour. Heating butter and oil in a frying pan, he sears the fish skin side down. Once it turns a perfect golden brown, he squeezes the citrus juice over the top and lets it cook through. Despite using a wok, which caused the meat to curl slightly, the dish turns out beautifully. Lorikina praises his amazing culinary skills, to which he confidently replies that he excels at cooking fish. He serves the meal to the elf, who immediately perks up at the incredible smell. She quickly whispers a prayer of thanks in the elven language before picking up her fork. She curiously asks what the dish is called. Instinctively slipping into a professional chef persona, he proudly presents it as an otherworld flounder meunier with mandarin orange flavor. She takes a bite and happily declares it delicious. Spyra asks what kind of fish they are eating. Owari casually replies that it is a flounder, prompting Lorikina to excitedly clarify that it is the terrifying monster from earlier. The horrifying realization hits Spira instantly. She drops her fork, sprints to a nearby basket, and violently throws up. Confused by her sudden reaction, he asks if eating the monster violates her religion. She furiously scolds him, pointing out that the fish had recently eaten a person, making it completely abnormal and disturbing to consume. He calmly tells her to relax, explaining that he has already discarded his old world's ethics in order to survive as a resident of this new environment. She grumbles that while beastfolk and demons might eat such things without hesitation, it is entirely too much for an elf. Trying to ease the tension, Lorikina innocently offers her some fruit. Though Spyra points out the absurdity of casually eating fruit after such a horrifying revelation, she stubbornly declares that she will erase the traumatic memory through sheer willpower rather than magic. Munching on the fruit, she finally suggests that it is time for them to properly exchange names. The elf girl introduces herself as Spyra Leopard. Following suit, Lorikina and Owari introduce themselves. Spira sincerely thanks him for saving her, explaining that she survived inside the monster's stomach for several days by using protective magic. Impressed, he marvels at her endurance. She casually admits that she could have escaped at any time, but chose to stay inside the beast because she cannot swim and feared drowning in the open ocean. Curious about her presence, Lorikina asks why she came to the island. She explains that she is hunting the rare carbuncle fish. During their peak breeding season, these unique fish develop precious gems on their bodies, and she traveled here specifically to harvest them. Hearing this, Owari marvels at his new reality. Between giant flounders and gem-producing fish, he realizes this magical world is an absolute dream for a fisherman. Initially, Spyra struggles to believe that he caught the massive monster with a mere fishing rod. However, upon inspecting his gear, she immediately senses powerful enhancement, durability, and ownership magic infused into the tool. She demonstrates that the reel is magically locked so that only he can turn the handle. Though still skeptical about his claim of being from another world, she accepts his fishing skills and abruptly requests a bath to wash off the disgusting stomach slime. Later, she and Lorikina wash up and relax in the local hot spring. Relieved, she admits she completely underestimated the beastfolk, having expected them to bathe in freezing cold water. She praises the relaxing atmosphere and the beautiful view of the nearby river. Just as they are talking, a sparkling fish leaps out of the water right in front of them. Spotting the glowing gems forming on its body, Spyra instantly recognizes her target. Slightly annoyed, she scolds her companion for not pointing out the valuable fish sooner. Later, they call Owari over to look at the gem-producing creature. Spyra identifies it as a carbuncle fish, but he immediately notes its strong resemblance to a brocaded carp, commonly known as a koi. He explains that while people often assume these colorful fish are artificially created, they actually originated as sudden mutations of the common carp, with historical dictionaries documenting their vibrant colors centuries ago. Lorikina immediately asks if they can eat it. He clarifies that they are generally meant for appreciation, though technically edible. He suggests they head home for the day. While Lorikina is just eager for dinner, Spyra protests, worrying that the fish will escape into deep water if they lose sight of it. He reassures her that they first need to practice and request a new hook from the elder. Furthermore, he explains that because it is their breeding season, the fish will definitely stay in the shallows to lay eggs on aquatic plants. He describes their aggressive spawning behavior, called hataki, which involves loud splashing near the surface. Thoroughly creeped out by his obsessive fish knowledge, she begs him to stop talking. He agrees with a smile, and they head back so he can cook the leftover flounder. 2 days later, with a newly forged hook and some bread, they return to the water. Lorikina excitedly assumes the bread is for sandwiches, but he explains that carp are voracious omnivores, making the bread perfect bait. He tears off a piece, attaches it to the hook, and gently casts the line, taking care not to startle the spawning fish. Fascinated, Spyra remarks that she has never seen such an interesting tool in her entire 160 years of life. Shocked by her massive age, he drops his formal tone at her request. She soon notices that his bait is drifting away untouched. He calmly explains that fish in the middle of spawning show absolutely no interest in food. Instead, his actual targets are the males that are not actively participating in the spawn. He deduces that only the males produce the gems, suspecting that the sparkling jewels are actually just nuptial tubercles, temporary, hard bumps that appear on male fish during breeding season, which were completely worthless in his original world. He explains that in his old world, these bumps were not valuable like gems. Suddenly, the rod begins to shake as the fish approaches the bait. Lorikina excitedly points out that the line is pulling. Owari stays calm, explaining that carp repeatedly suck in and spit out bait to test it, meaning he must not rush to set the hook. Suddenly, the line strains heavily and darts forward. With a shout of exertion, he turns the reel handle, amazed by the incredible initial burst of power typical of a hooked carp. As the fish finally comes into view and is pulled ashore, it is covered in sparkling gems. Spyra excitedly hugs the slimy fish, completely obsessed with the jewels. He sweat drops, noting her drastically different, almost crazed behavior. Meanwhile, Lorikina is only focused on eating the carp cuisine. Realizing both girls are a handful, he decides to dispatch the fish and drain the blood. After she collects an entire bowl full of gems, he begins cutting the carcass. Using a knife enchanted by Spira, he effortlessly slices cleanly through the tough flesh and bones. He marvels at how incredibly convenient physical enhancement magic is. During the cleaning process, he carefully digs out a specific organ, identifying it as the gallbladder. He explains that if this organ is punctured, its intense bitterness will ruin the meat, and in carp, it is actually highly poisonous. After safely removing the toxic organ, he slices the fish into rounds, washes the meat, and adds sake, sugar, soy sauce, and water to a pot. She uses her magic to light the cooking fire, earning applause from her companions, though she humbly brushes it off. He lets the broth come to a boil, adds the fillets, skims off the scum, and lets it simmer slowly. 3 hours later, the dish is finally ready. They all take a bite. She praises the comforting, rustic flavor, while Lorikina shouts in pure delight. He notes that thanks to the clean river water, the fish lacks any muddy smell. He playfully points out that she is actually eating fish this time. She confidently replies that she only avoids fish that eat humans, assuming a river fish high in the mountains has never seen a person. However, as she pokes her fork into the meat, she pulls out a metal ring. Her expression instantly darkens, and she vomits in horror, realizing the carp had indeed eaten a human. Spyra becomes noticeably gloomy at the horrific thought of what they are eating. Trying to ease the tension, Owari explains that carp naturally suck up bait from the bottom of the riverbed along with sand and gravel, suggesting the fish likely just swallowed a ring that someone had dropped. She replies that regardless of the truth, the disturbing image is the real problem. Realizing her picky eating will only worsen if he does not change the subject, he points to the bowl of crystals and asks what she plans to do with the gems. She explains that she will sell them at the guild for money, noting that the metal ring might fetch a particularly high price. However, she admits she cannot determine its exact value because it is imbued with magical power. She explains that magical rings have hidden effects that remain completely unknown until they are actually worn. Thinking it sounds like a cool gemstone ring from a game, he casually slips it onto his finger. Panic overtakes her, and she lunges forward, accidentally hitting him as she reflexively tries to stop his hand. She apologizes, stunned that he put it on without any hesitation. She admits that his story about being from another world suddenly feels very real, given his sheer ignorance regarding cursed items. He panics, frantically asking if he is going to die. Lorikina chimes in, completely ignoring his well-being and complaining that if he dies, she won't be able to eat his delicious fish dishes anymore. Spyra closely examines his hand and confirms the ring is cursed, though thankfully not lethally. She explains that the curse binds the ring to his finger until it is returned to its rightful owner. Relieved, he assumes that is the only catch, until she casually mentions that if a hidden time limit expires, his finger will simply rot and fall off. He furiously snaps at her, questioning how she can classify losing a finger as fine. He stresses that since he just arrived in this world and knows absolutely nothing, finding a random ring owner is an impossible task. Seeing an opportunity, she notes that this works out perfectly for everyone and confidently suggests they form a party to travel together. Owari hesitates, reminding her that he is just an ordinary middle-aged man. She quickly dismisses his self-doubt, pointing out that in this world, anyone possessing his incredible fishing skills is far from ordinary. She reasons that they will be mutually beneficial allies. She will help him break the ring's curse, and he will help her catch rare and powerful fish. Convinced by her logic, he agrees and extends his hand to finalize their new partnership. Before they can shake, Lorikina intercepts his hand, playfully demanding that he invite her to join the party first. Spyra teases the beastfolk girl, pointing out how cute she looks when she blushes. Amused by her eagerness to tag along, he gently tells her to get her parents' approval first, which earns him a playful scolding from the elf. The next day, the village elder formally expresses his deepest gratitude to the fisherman for defeating the warrior eater. However, he insists that he is the one who should be thanking the village, especially after receiving a heavy, newly crafted backpack. The elder proudly explains that the bag contains custom fishing gear, forged specifically based on the stories he shared about his old world. Thrilled by the incredibly helpful gift, the three companions officially embark on their journey, making their way across the landscape. As they cross the shallow water, Spyra urges everyone to pick up the pace because the tide is rapidly coming in. Owari struggles to keep up, admitting that his heavy legs are dragging behind him. She reassures him that they will be fine, noting that they rarely encounter dangerous monsters in this area. Meanwhile, Lorikina cheerfully wishes him good luck on the trek. Suddenly, a massive bird swoops down from the sky. Before anyone can react, the giant creature snatches Owari up in its sharp claws and takes flight. Looking closely, it becomes clear that the monstrous bird is actually being controlled by a mysterious rider. Looking down at her captive, the rider mutters that she was originally supposed to kidnap the elf, but casually decides that taking the human as a hostage will work just as well.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away.